Hey, good morning, guys. This is Scot Jones. I'm covering for Philip this week. As many of you are aware, Philip is down in the Dominican Republic at our units there in Punta Cana. He's hosting Nanette, Jose, and Michelle as part of their prize, their incentive reward for winning our Spring Madness competition. So I know a couple of them are on the plane right now, but we wish them all good luck. We wish them all the best and have a wonderful time in doing that. We've got a couple of late arrivers to the call this morning, so I'm kind of waiting on that a little bit for everybody to get here. But I appreciate you guys taking the time out on your Monday morning to get here. And I know that the history of this call has kind of changed a little bit, kind of morphed over time. The original purpose of this call was kind of a president's council for those that were kind of our industry leaders inside of NVITA that had kind of separated themselves out, and we're going to go over activity reports. The basic tools, the basic activities weekly that would drive your business. The number of prospects that you contacted, the number of KTAs, your kitchen table appointments that you did, aiming for the recruit and hitting the sale and daily activities, the number of callbacks that you've done. But guys, I don't know if Philip has told you this in the past, or maybe he has, but out of the 20-something people that are on this call, I think this week we got 6 reports in, and it looks like a couple of those are done at the last hour. Just kind of writing that stuff down rather than really going about it strategically and making notes and using that as your guide sheet, your playbook, if you will, your measuring stick for your business as you go. So with that said, there's not a whole lot of those numbers to go through. Some of the numbers, if they are indeed your activity for the week, somebody would need to get with you on an individual basis and kind of talk about efficiencies for some of you, because you should be producing more than what you are. If those are your numbers for others of you, we probably need to talk with you about general activity. But with that said, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit this morning about building a business and what that looks like. I am a business builder. Before I do that, we kind of talked about activity for the week, but out of the people who are invited on the call, I just want to share this with you. We had, if I look at the people who are invited on the call, and either your direct downline or a downline that reports to you, we had 17 new agents come in for the week out of this President's Club. And we had 8 of those licensed agents are people who became licensed in that. And so out of the people who are on the President's Council call, who are in this leadership circle, those 17 people came in only 6 of your organizations. So that means there are multiple of us on this call who didn't do anything agent-wise to grow our business this past week. And out of those 6, several of them came in the same agencies under the same leader. And for the people that are on this call, typically the ones who recruited directly, and congratulations to you, whether they were licensed or unlicensed, or Jorge Magana, Chad Spargman, Ralph Simpson, Jose Denze, and then here out of our Danville office. So those are agency leaders who went out and personally sponsored this week. And then some of those same leaders had people in their organization that filled out the rest of those 17 spots. So guys, that is some of the activity, or one of the major activities that it takes week in and week out to build your business, to get to where you want to be and have the business that you want to have. So here's a little bit about me. I am a business builder. I've built businesses, processes, and game plans my entire professional career. And I've done that in several different roles. I've done that as an assistant plant manager in the plywood industry. I was responsible for developing processes of how to run a plant more efficiently, how to maximize the labor base that we had while keeping rates of instances and things of that nature down. I even developed a revolutionary process that ended up moving me from South Carolina to Virginia. A company hired me and gave me a wonderful stock option and a nice big paycheck to come up here just so they could get the process that I'd reinvented. Pretty simple process. I was amazed that nobody else had thought about it before. I've developed businesses and processes and game plans as an entrepreneur, in as much as what I'm doing now, but also as a high school football, basketball, and baseball coach. And that was my favorite position to have been in, as a process builder and as a game planner. First off, I enjoyed the competition. It got me fired up, it got me revved up, it got me focused, it got the best out of me because it was a competition. You were playing for keeps, you were playing for trophies, you were getting prepared. You had a finite season. You had a beginning, you had an end, and at the end of that season, they gave out rings and trophies, and I enjoyed preparing for that, planning for that, and getting a bunch of young men focused on that same goal and working towards that. I enjoyed teaching and leading those young men. And along with that, I enjoyed the camaraderie that came with it when someone put their trust in you to lead them and teach them techniques or skills that they may not have had before. That was gratifying in that regard. And I enjoyed the game planning. I enjoyed taking the skill sets and the assets that I had out there and the abilities of those young men and game planning of how I never game planned to beat the opponent. I always game planned to win. And there's a difference. When you focus on beating the opponent, you begin to focus on the opponent's strengths and how the opponent can beat you. When you begin to focus on how you win, you begin to position your players, the people on your team, and yourself to be in the best position to do the best that they can on every play, on every timeout, on every activity that they do. Rather than focusing on stopping what someone else does best, you have to focus on maximizing what it is that you and your team do best. And during the week, over the course of the season, over the course of a business, over the course of a career, continuing to hone those skills, continuing to work them out to get them to the position that they can do more, and they can do more better, and they can do more quickly. I also enjoyed the immediate feedback. That was one thing about coaching sports. You had immediate feedback on your game plan. You knew by looking at the scoreboard whether it was working, whether your team was working, or whether you needed to adjust. And that's the one thing about business, sports, and life. I'm going to tell you guys, it is never the best game plan that wins. It is always the team, the person, the leader, the individual that adjust their game plan the best that wins. Because you've taken all this time to lay out your game plan. If things went exactly like you wanted them to be, exactly how you wanted it to go, there would be people lined up around the corner to be part of your game plan. It doesn't happen that way. There's not a one of you on this phone that have had life and your business, it happened exactly the way that you planned it out in your mind or on paper. But that doesn't stop you because the game is on. You can't stop the game. The clock is not up yet. So you have to adjust your game plan accordingly to make the best of the situation, the talent that you have to make your business as successful as can be. And I'll relate part of this to my business as a box theory. And what I mean by that is simply you walk into business and it's kind of a box, and I'm sorry my slides went to sleep on me here. And immediately as soon as you enter your business or your box, you see walls of confinement. You see financial walls that confine you. You see time requirement walls that confine you. You see knowledge walls that confine you. And you see skill set walls, your own personal skill set that confine you. These are all areas of confinement inside of your business. And your job is to continually push on those walls to create more room in your business box. And as you do that, you create more profit. You create more financial flow. But you've got to work on each one of these walls by increasing that room, by pushing against that wall and pushing back. And eventually, once you get that momentum going, Good to Great defines it as a flywheel. You have to put a lot of energy and effort in there on the front end to get that flywheel turning. But once you get that flywheel turning, then you just have to maintain it. And it takes so much less energy to maintain that flywheel turning than it does to get it started. Philip refers to it as a locomotive. I think he says it takes 2,000 pounds of pressure to move the locomotive 1 inch, and that same amount of pressure exerted again can move that locomotive a mile. The startup is always the toughest part, guys, and so a lot of us are coming through this startup phase now. Vita as a company, you as individual agencies are starting to come through that startup phase. But you still have to keep pushing against those walls to create more space into your business so you can bring more people into your business, so you can increase the amount of room inside of that box. That increases your enjoyment. That increases your quality of life. That increases your financial outcome, but you have to push against that. You have to know what your financial constraints are. You have to know what your time constraints are. You have to be aware of what it is that you don't know. If it's product knowledge that you don't know, if it's recruitment that you don't know, if it's who you're looking for to put in your business that you don't know. You have to learn that. You have to know that. You have to go out and find that knowledge so you can push against that wall and create more space. And then you have to understand your skill set. And you have to know what skills you are lacking. And you have to continually improve against that skill set. And I know one skill that I lack, and that's patience. I am not blessed with patience. 1 year of my life, I set out to pray for patience every day, and I did. And I tell you guys, the next year of my life was the most trying year that I've ever had. Did I learn patience along the way? Yes. Am I where I want to be or where I need to be? No. I am still an impatient person, and that doesn't make me the best motivator in the world, because I'm of the school that I get up every morning and I read scripture and then I read a motivational quote. I try to focus on that through the course of the day. I try to let it sink in. I try to apply that in the course of my life, in the course of that day, kind of allowing it to build up one upon the other. I don't have the patience and the time to be spending my day motivating a bunch of other people. And I'm going to tell you, you don't either. That's not your job. You need to spend a lot of that time motivating yourself and becoming a magnet that people want to be with and that people want to follow. But in this business as a box theory, this is what I see happen a lot of times. In Vita, in other business or whatever it may be, people open the door to the business. They open the door to the opportunity. Then they get in and they realize, uh-oh, this is a box. There are 4 walls. Man, this space is pretty confining. I'm a little claustrophobic. So the first thing that they do is they start looking for an exit. Then they find the door on the other wall, straight across from the door they walk in. They immediately walk over to that door and put a hand on the knob and are looking for the first excuse to turn that knob and walk right out of the box. But guys, life is like that. Whether it's this box, another box, whatever it may be, you're going to find yourself in situations where you constantly have to push, you constantly have to expand to create the space in the room that you want, that you need to operate in freely, to operate in holistically, and to operate in financially. And for some people, that box is a different size. It's smaller for some than it is for others. For some people, it's a large box, and they have to push real hard. They have to push continually, over and over and over again. And I, nor anybody else, can define that box for you. You personally have to define that box. You personally have to get in there and push. Now, what we do is we help you. We'll help you along the way. If you tell us what skill sets you're short, we'll help you develop those. We'll help you get better at those. We'll come alongside and push with you when we can. But it's your box. You have to get in there and take control. You have to put your shoulder against the wall, and you have to push against it. So when you get in that box, what is your game plan? Do you have a game plan in place? Is your game plan simply slinging mud? Meaning, do I get in there and my game plan to business is I'm just going to grab enough handful of mud and sling it against the wall and see what sticks? Well, let me tell you about that game plan, guys, because I see it happen. I see it happen inside of Invita. I see people that obviously have that game plan. Well, unfortunately, when you have that game plan, every once in a while there's a gust of wind that comes by, and you grab a handful of mud and you throw it right into that wind, and that wind blows it right back in your face, right back all over you. Next thing you know, you're a muddy, stinky mess. Or do you have a strategy? Have you developed a strategy about going about your business? Are you strategic in your approach? Have you taken the time to sit down and write out a strategy that you're going to do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis? You need to be strategic in your business. Have you taken the time to write out a mission and a vision statement? That's one of the first things we did as a corporation. We wrote out our mission and we wrote out our vision. Because sometimes you get in that room and you get in there and you get to pushing against boxes so hard, against those walls so hard, you're straining, you're sweating, you're fussing, that you forget sometimes why you set out to do this, what your mission is, what your vision is. And sometimes you just have to stop and look up at the ceiling and remind yourself of why it is or what it is that you set out to accomplish and to do. What mission are you on? What vision do you have to keep pushing on those walls, to keep going, to keep creating the space in the room that you're after and that you want? How do you recruit? How do you go about that on a daily basis or a weekly basis? Is it simply picking up the phone and calling the usual suspects? Are you strategic in what you do? Do you prospect daily? You know, prospecting is a term that began in the gold rush. People were prospectors. They went out to the creek, to the mountains, to Alaska, to California, and they prospected. They selected a claim. They filed it. And they went out and they prospected on that claim. And you know, prospecting took a lot of pick work, a lot of axe work, and a lot of shovel work, and a lot of turning over rocks. And not every rock that they turned over, not every rock that they uncovered, not every rock that they chiseled away went into their bag. Some of it just went over to the side on the riverbank, on the stream. Sometimes they had to dig up under that rock to get to the silt and sediment below it. But that's what prospecting was. They went through a lot of rocks to end up getting the nuggets, the gold that they needed in that. So do you prospect on every day? And prospecting, guys, some of you may have the wrong concept about that. It's just strictly striking up a conversation and see where it goes. Get into one or two questions. And if those questions are answered in such a way, then you may have somebody that you can carry on the conversation with. But part of prospecting is being proud of who you are and what you do in Envita, and being a licensed insurance agent who is building their own insurance agency. I don't know if many of you have ever thought about that and wrapped your arms around that aspect as far as what you're doing in building your own insurance agency. But that's what you are. That's what you're doing. Some of you are trying to build your own insurance dynasty. Great. Your box is going to be bigger. It's going to take more pushing. It's going to take more straining. It's going to take more activity. You're going to have to get more people in that box with you. And that's fine because you can do it. People have done it before. People will do it afterwards. But it takes a lot of prospecting in that recruiting. Do you advertise for your recruits? Are you strictly doing it by word of mouth? Are you strictly doing it by calling the same old usual suspects who a lot of times will get you the same old usual results? Sometimes you got to fish in different ponds. Sometimes you might not have access to the pond. You might not have a key to that gate to get down that dirt road to get to where the good fish are. So you have to go over the gate. You have to go over the fence. You have to fly a banner like they do at the beach to prospect, to get to those people. Do you advertise for your business? And when you advertise, what are you looking for? Have you thought about what you're looking for? Have you made out a list of characteristics of what people need, of what you're looking for in an agent to come work in your business? I'm using the term recruit today, but for years, I've never said the term recruit. I've always referred to this as a hiring process. And the companies that we have, I've done a lot of hiring over the years, and I've done a lot of firing. And I always tell people I've never fired anybody. I just typically have a meeting with someone, the third meeting in a row, and confirm the choice that they've already made, that they no longer want to work with me or my organization. I didn't fire them. I just confirmed the choice that they had made some time ago, and it showed up in their actions that culminated to this last meeting. But when I hire people, I have a certain skill set, certain characteristics that I'm looking for. I know what the job takes. Whether it be a line cook in a restaurant, whether it be a receptionist or a reservationist at one of our hospitality holdings, whether it be a cleaner, I know what characteristics and skill sets are needed for those positions. So that's what I look for. That's what I advertise for. I also have to be willing to see if the capability is there. Maybe the skill set's not developed yet, but maybe the capability to develop that skill set is there. So I have to look for that when I interview. I interview people. I interview people for the jobs that we had in the restaurants, the cleaning business, the hospitality business, the real estate. I interview people for Envita. It's okay to say no that somebody is not a recruit. The last thing you want to do is take on a set of problems that is going to monopolize your time, that is going to take up your time, that is going to get you emotionally balled up, that is going to get your momentum down, that's going to get your focus off, and is going to spread like a cancer among your team. It's okay to say no. This business is not a life raft for everybody. There's some people out there, guys, I don't mean to be harsh and I don't need to be cold, that don't need you, they don't need Envita, they need a miracle. And you may or may not be it. You have to focus your aim. You have to quit slinging mud and just seeing what sticks to build a sustainable business with the growth that you need, with the time constraints that you have, You have to be strategic in what you do, because you can spend all day bringing in bad apples and then the rest of your time sorting through their problems and sorting them out. Those are going to be the ones that constantly call you. They'll probably never, ever turn in their own policy. They're just going to go out and be a feeder system and then try to get you to finish up all their paperwork. So you end up working for them in your agency as opposed to them working for you. But sometimes it's so tempting because it's a warm body and somebody that said yes. For those of you who are married out there on the call, you didn't do that when you got married with the person that you wanted to partner with for life. You waited a little bit before you asked the question, before you said yes. There were things you had to find out about your partner, things you needed to see, work ethic, integrity, honesty. All those things matter. And it matters in a business where you're dealing with the public. And it matters with the business that you've got fiduciary responsibility in. It matters. And you have to be strategic in how you go about it. Now, guys, I wish I could tell you what line all the honest people with integrity that were looking to work and wanted to sell insurance lined up in. We would all be there. They're in different places. They're at churches. They're in other careers. They're at schools. Sometimes they're already doing jobs that require those same characteristics. They may not be making the income that they need, or they may have part-time available. They may be coming out of school. They may be cutting your grass, but they may do it with the characteristics that you're looking for. When they think that you're not looking, they may be blowing off the sidewalk. But it's the characteristics that you're looking for that you know that it takes to make someone successful in this business. So develop your game plan. Develop your game plan of how you recruit. Develop your game plan of how you train, of how you interact with people. But you can't be successful by constantly slinging mud. So what are some of the pitfalls out there? Why are some people struggling? Why do some people struggle? This is just a short list. This is not a complete list. Some of it is lack of activity. You get into your business box and you just expect things to happen. You don't put your shoulder to the wall and push. You don't try to expand it. You don't try to make more room. You just get in there and you sit down and say, all right, I've got a box. This is my lot in life. This is what I've been given. So I'm going to exist here in this box. And most of the time you exist miserably. It's not what you signed up for. It's not what you wanted. It's not what you expected. Eventually somebody comes along and promises a bigger, shinier box. It's got a nice couch in it, whatever it may be. You grab the doorknob, you head out into another box. And then you sit down in that box and you figure out the same thing. You got to get up and you got to push. Building that box to what you need takes activity every day. Sometimes it's a lack of focus. Sometimes it's focusing on the wrong thing. Sometimes we walk in and we get into our business and we think it's just supposed to happen. So we focus on being who we want to be, or let's say pretending, rather than focusing on the steps to becoming who we will be. So we get our focus all wrong. Sometimes one of the first things that we do when we get a business is we go out and we may spend money that we probably shouldn't, thinking that we've arrived already, rather than adding as the journey goes along. Sometimes we focus on the wrong activities. And that's easy to do. Guys, I've done it. I still do it today. And we had J.D. Clockadale come in at our last convention, and he talked about revenue-generating activities. Well, guys, one of the main reasons that we go into a business is to make money. And the only way to make money is by generating revenue. So are you focusing on those activities every day that will generate you revenue? And it typically involves the phone, picking it up and making calls. It's okay that people say no. I would rather have an upfront, straightforward no than a reluctant yes. I'm looking for the energetic thank you yeses. I'm okay with the straightforward, man, you're bothering the heck out of me no's. I'm okay with those because at least I know, right? But I'm fearful of the reluctant yeses. Sometimes we get hung up. Sometimes we get hung up on challenges. Sometimes we get hung up on problems that are coming our way. And rather than overcoming those or push through them, we just get hung up on them. Those become our focus. About how can such and such be doing this? Or somebody's trying to recruit my people away. That's going to happen, guys. That's going to happen. And you can't spend all of your time, energy, and focus there. Because then it feels like those walls in your box are starting to close back in on you. And just when you're breaking through and starting to get some sunshine shining in there, those walls start closing back in and you get back into the shadows again and you get yourself confused and frustrated. You can't get focused on that. You can't get hung up on that. You have to stay focused on those activities that's going to move those walls, expand your business, and generating revenue. And this is the one that I see a lot. You start playing psychologist. Be careful of that, guys. You didn't go into this business to fix people's problems. Fact of the matter is, most of us aren't qualified to fix other people's problems. Most of us are struggling with our own problems. The problems of time and financial management. How do you be a good father? How do you be a good husband? How do you be a good business person? How do you match all of the time and demands on that time with the finite time that you have? How do you manage that? How do you make the most of that? And that's as much as most of us can handle. So we have to figure it out for ourselves and then teach other people to figure it out based off of maybe what we did or maybe some adjustments they make in their life. But we can't play psychologists. We can't go in and fix every problem that they have. We're not qualified, and that's going to get us hung back up again. We feel like we're busy. We feel like we're making a difference. But a lot of times you find out you didn't even make a dent. And they had 4 other psychologists that they were seeing, and they eventually want to go spend the time with the one who tells them what they want to hear. And you just lost a lot of your own time, a lot of your own energy, a lot of your desire. Somebody just sucked that right out of you. You can't afford to get caught up into that, guys. Sometimes people have more challenges in their personal life than what you can bring into your business. Think about your business this way. If you were running a restaurant and people came in with those problems, those issues, would you spend time with them? Would you bring them in every day? Would you pay them if it were habitual problems? Being late, rudeness, making the same errors over and over and over again. Guys, I'm not telling you to cut anybody from your team. I'm just telling you can't get hung up trying to fix all of the problems that they may have. I can't fix your problems on the phone. Most of the time, that's in between you and the good Lord and your family and the help that you seek, but the changes that you have to make personally. So don't get hung up doing that for other people. And guys, I'm going to wrap up today, and then I'll do my best to open up the phones here and maybe ask 1 or 2 of you a question in closing. But I'm going to open up the phone here with the parable of the sower. And this is out of Matthew chapter 13. For those of you who don't know, I'm a pretty spiritual guy. I was born the son of a music director. I spent most of my life, all of my life in church, and that's the book that I rely on most of the time for not only my personal growth and development, but my business growth and development, because there are a long line of Joneses that came before me, and it's important to me that when I leave, I didn't do any damage to that last name. And the parable of the sower is best explained in a business sense, especially in a Vita-based business sense, by a gentleman by the name of Jim Rome, who's long passed on, but I encourage you to go find it. You can find this on the internet. At some point, don't rush off to do it today in spite of revenue-generating activities. But I suggest that you listen to this as done by Jim, because I'm going to do it a disservice today, but I'm going to talk to you about the parable of the sower and how it relates to business. The parable of sowers is simply put, to summarize, it's the story of a man who's out sowing seeds in a field. The ground's been prepared, the soil's been turned over, but you got to envision that they took this raw ground and they busted it up, and they're planting it for the first time. And on one side of the field, there's a road that goes by, old gravel-based road, pebbles and hard-packed road that goes on it. And then on the remaining side is either weeds or thorns or brambles, or even open field that hasn't been tilled, hasn't been plowed. But the sower goes along about his business. He's paid to sow. That's what he does. He throws seeds. And he starts, as soon as he gets on the field, walking up and down. And he just grabs a handful of seeds and he's throwing. He's throwing them, making passes up and down, up and down, up and down. Well, some of those seeds land out on that rocky road, hard packed. They don't have a chance in the world of ever taking root. Some of those seeds land out over the side of the field where the weeds are, and they don't have a chance to take root and sprout. And those seeds that land there and on that road, well, guess what? They become bird food. The birds come by, they see the ones on the rocky road real easy and pick those up. You may have cast some seed out there and you've got somebody that, that seed of Invita may have landed on rocky road. And somebody said, yeah, I want to do it. And then they never show up for a meeting. They never return your call. They never do anything. But you'll spend a lot of your time continuing to chase that seed out there on that rocky road that's never going to sprout, and chances are the bird has gotten it. As Jim Rome says, the bird done got him. Picked that seed up, took it off to something else, devoured that seed. Guys, you can't do anything with that. You can't resurrect that seed. You can't make that seed grow. You can't get that seed back once the bird has gotten it. So you can't spend your time there. But that sower, he keeps on sowing. He knows that some of that seed is going to land on that rocky road. He knows some of it's going to land over in the pasture. He knows that the birds are going to get those. But that doesn't distract him from what he's doing. That doesn't upset him. He keeps on sowing. He's making passes up and down. Then he gets to the other side of the field where the briars, the brambles, and the weeds are. And he throws some seed over there. And he comes back. That seed's taking root. It wants to sprout. It wants to grow. But all of a sudden, what happens? That young sprout, that tender stem, as it's growing, gets choked out by those briars, brambles, and those weeds. Nothing that the sower did. It landed there. Pretty decent soil. But that soil was also growing so much other distraction in that person's life. Weeds and briars, and it just choked that young tender shoot out. You know what the sower didn't do? He didn't run over there and start weeding everybody else's garden. He didn't start cutting back all those briars and all those brambles and pulling all those weeds so that one tender shoot could survive. No, he was the sower. He wasn't the Savior. He kept on sowing. His job was to sow seeds. And so he focused on the seeds that fell on the fertile soil, the soil that had been plowed and tilled by life, that soil that was ready to receive, the soil that was ready to sprout and support new growth and foster that growth into something productive. That's where the sower spent his time. That's where the sower spent his focus. And guys, I want to encourage you today to keep sowing, to keep on sowing the seed. Sometimes once we feel like we've got one sprouting, whether it be on the rocky road or whether it be over there in the weeds, we want to foster that. We want to huddle around it. We want to have a prayer meeting over it. We want to make sure that that seed grows, and so often it is out of your control. You have to keep sowing. You don't know the soil that is in anybody's life because you didn't bust it, you didn't plow it. You only see what they allow you to see. You have to focus on what that soil is yielding. And if that soil begins to yield the shoots and the signs that you need, that's what you need to focus on. That's what you need to cultivate. That's what you need to grow. That's what you need to tend to as a sower of your business. And keep pushing against those walls. Keep making room in your box so it can accommodate more people to help you push as well. And so you can create the space that you need in time, in freedom, in joy, in spirituality, and in financial gain that you want and need to create for yourself. Denny Faircloth, can you hear me and speak?
I can.
All right. Denny, I'm going to bring you on right now. Denny, and this is not to single you out, but you were one of the most systematic in your approach that we have in the business. So, Denny, if you don't mind just sharing with the rest of the group real quick, and I know I've kind of put you on the spot here, what it is that you think is the most important part of your business on a daily basis.
I think that's kind of in flux at the moment, only because I'm making the transition from, at least in this business, from personal production to now a heightened focus on recruiting. And first, before I guess tackle it, I'd like to say that it's funny how sometimes things just come along at the perfect time, and for me this morning, having you on and the things that you've covered was kind of exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it, if that makes sense. So I appreciate it, and it's just strengthened my resolve to kind of get a lot of this stuff tackled. Because I went on vacation last month, and I'm taking with just my wife, and then I'm taking the whole family down to the beach next week. So, this week is kind of get all my ducks in a row and be ready to hit the ground running when I come back. And a lot of it will be focused on the process. I flew out to Dallas and back in the last couple of days, and on the flight out there and back, I spent a lot of time just trying to identify the flow for both the recruiting and the training. If you get up every day without a plan, it becomes very hard to identify what those important activities are. So for me, although my wife will tell you I hate planning, it's my least favorite activity, especially whenever we're going on a trip or doing something like I'm not a planner. But I have learned over time that even though I hate it, it's the best thing for me. The structure gives me a track to run on. It lets me know, where I'm at and what I need to be doing, and keeps me focused and keeps me working on the things that matter the most in my business. So for me, the last week and this week is really focused on just that. It's putting together that system, that process, those activities, um, and that calendar of events that will support my goals and the things I want to accomplish over the rest of this year. So it's getting really dialed in, whether it be a prospect or a recruit of what that process looks like. What are the activities I'm doing on a daily basis to meet new potential clients or agents? When I meet a new client or agent, what's my process that I take them through for either getting the family protected and or for recruiting the new rep. If it's a client, what is that follow-up going to look like to get the business closed? And once it's closed, what's that going to look like in terms of how I stay in contact with them over time and maintain that relationship and help them the best I can and identify new opportunities, to write business and or to get referrals. So, what's that look like for a client? And for an agent, what's that process look like from the moment I engage with them to getting them the information they need to make a decision? What's my decision look like relative to whether or not it's someone that I want to work with? And I love that you talked about, saying no to potential prospects because while it can be hard, I've found that it's only hard to say no to someone that doesn't fit when you don't have other people that do fit. So making sure that pipeline stays full, making sure you've always got new activity, making sure there's always people, evaluating the opportunity so that you can, be more selective as to who you work with. And once they do make a decision and come on board and you've outlined what that looks like for them to join your organization, what your expectations are and what they're going to need to do, then it's how do you give them the best opportunity to succeed? Like what's the process of getting them up and running and up to speed and productive? And then how are you going to handle managing them through that process? How do you respond when they aren't doing the things that they need to do to get what they say they want, and then how do you continue to help them grow when they are doing those things and are hitting their goals and are wanting to take their business to the next level. So I know that was kind of a long-winded answer, but I've made a conscious decision personally to instead of trying to knock the ball out of the park, I create these lofty goals, and oftentimes I try to do activities that I think will make them happen overnight. Um, and I don't know if you've ever listened to or studied or read any of Tony Robbins' books, but one of the things that he always talks about is that people um, they grossly overestimate what they can do in a year. They set these ridiculous New Year's resolutions that are impossible to accomplish or stick to. Therefore, they never hit them and they always give up. But people also grossly underestimate what they can accomplish in a lifetime. And another guy that I'm studying now in a personal development course that I'm pursuing, talks about the concept of hitting home runs and how hitting a single is never sexy and everyone always tries to knock it out of the park, and I'm very much that way. Um, but if you focus on just getting on base on a daily basis, and I kind of use that as an analogy for if you just focus on the activities, the process that you've created for getting in front of new people, from introducing them to the business, from getting them up and running, from mentoring them and helping them grow. If you have a very specific, systemized process and activities and focus on those things, then over the course of 90 days, a year, 2, 3, 5 years, it's amazing what you can accomplish.
Yeah, Denny, I don't think it was a long-winded answer. I appreciate your participation and me putting you on the spot today, but I do know how process-driven that you are, and I can't disagree with anything that you said. You know, I definitely hear that you think one of the most important aspects that you can do on a daily basis with your business is plan. If you don't plan, you don't direct the business. You're just along for the ride. If you don't plan, you don't have a bit in the horse's mouth. The plan is the bit in the horse's mouth. You can't steer the horse without the plan because you don't know where you're going. Steering at that point is fruitless. It's kind of like a ship being on the ocean without a sail. If you don't have a plan, if you don't have objectives, if you don't have things to measure yourself against, you're like a ship on the ocean without a sail. You're going to go wherever the tides of life take you. But if you've got a sail, as soon as that breeze comes along, and guys, you're going to have it. Some of you have had it already. You weren't ready. You didn't pitch your sail. It's going to come along again. As soon as you have a plan and that breeze comes along, you can pitch your sail to catch that breeze to take you to the shore that you want to land on. And sometimes you have to do it against headwinds. So you got to tack back and left and right, left and right. But without a plan, you don't know where you're going to go, and you're going to go where the tide takes you. And unfortunately for some people, that ends up taking them to a rocky shore that crashes that boat. So Denny, I appreciate that this morning, that you have to plan. And nobody really likes planning. They just want to go do, and they just want it to happen. But you got to plan for it to happen. You have to adjust that plan along the way. The worst thing that you can do is to do something today that didn't work out. But because you don't have a plan, you get up tomorrow and you go do the exact same thing. Chances are it's not going to work out again. You have to make a plan. You have to adjust the plan and find your stride and hit your stride. So here's my challenge for you guys this week. And I won't be following up with you next week, Philip will, but you can follow up with me independently. Leads and sales is one struggle that we all have in the business. We know that there's a great need out there for insurance. Just a lot of people just don't know, just don't understand. Referrals are a hard thing for a lot of people to come by. As being direct is what Philip teaches. One thing that you can do is you can be the best agent to the people that you have serviced already. Guys, if you've made 10 sales over the course of your career, if you've made 50 sales, I challenge you to pick up the phone and you call some of those people this week. You see how they're doing. Now you tell them you appreciate their business. You want to know if there's anything else they need that you can do for them, and you ask them for a referral again. You build that trust relationship. Stephen Covey's passed on now. He wrote a book called The Speed of Trust. I encourage you to look at it, to read it as you get time. But people will do business with you as quick as what they will trust you. The largest speed bump, the largest hurdle that has to be overcome in referral business is trust. People have to trust you. They have to trust you with the names of their friends and their family, the people they care about, because by the nature of them giving you that referral, you become a reflection of their decision making. So you have to build that trust relationship. So my challenge to you this week is for you to call a minimum of 10 of the clients that you've serviced in the past, just as a service call, checking back into them, and try to work that into a referral business. And let's see where that takes your business this week. The other thing is, if you don't have a plan, make a plan. Take some time to do that. If you need some help with that, I will do my best to get with you. Philip will be back next week. Maybe your upline can help you. But with that said, guys, I appreciate your time today. Denny, I appreciate you coming on, even though I put you on the spot. Guys, I wish you all the best. God bless you, and much success this week. Take care. Good day.